Kellen, my
Brad,
friend.
hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I just noticed the shirt you're wearing.
I don't know what you're talking about. So this is the most prepared I've been for anything in years. It was like, I have a shirt that's appropriate for tonight's topic.
That's so good, Brad. That's so good. I saw the shirt and I saw the lines on it. And I was like, that's a well-designed shirt. But then I read the words at the bottom. Brad, I'm doing very well today. It's I feel like when we first started doing the show, every single week there was a crazy thing that was happening in America. Sure. It was just insanity. And some days there's not. It's just like a normal Wednesday. And I kind of miss those days where I was like, there's an insurrection happening or there's a president being put on trial. I miss those salad days.
Do you though?
I kind of do. I kind of do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Living for the drama.
It's not the drama, Brad. It's just the hope that maybe we're not in a pointless simulation, because that's the reason why I can't get into simulation theory. Is there's too much of life that's too pointless for me to believe that it's someone decided to make a simulation about it.
But Euro Truck Simulator is one of the most popular video games of all time.
I love truck simulators.
Pointless simulations are an amazing and very wildly popular thing, even in humans. So like who knows what the aliens or the whatever robot overlords of the future or whatever created the simulation.
We have to say hi to Aerith Girl. Aerith Girl is here. Aerith, I have no idea where you are on your vacation, but you look fabulous. Looks like you're having a great time.
Yeah.
And also, get back on your vacation. What are you doing watching this show?
Right.
Watch it tomorrow on demand, and we'll. Thank you for being here. But please,
that's a great place to go. That I was like, I don't know why you're here watching this.
I don't know why you're here watching this, but thank you.
What?
Yeah.
Always great to have her and in the chat.
So Brad, we'll
get her on at some point. I think.
Oh, we will.
We'll figure that out.
She's in St. Martin. Oh, wow. How fun. There's a lot of people. Carrie's going to the Bahamas. Aerith Girl is in St. Martin. Brad and I are staying inside because it's summer.
Yeah, it is summer, and the border is still closed for now. So I can't escape very far anyway. Technically, I could escape like within Canada, but it wouldn't help me, have much of a vacation from the weather or anything.
Yeah. So, Brad, I started a new job, and I started a new job in Canada. I'm working remote in a Canadian company, and I can't tell you how much you have helped me to assimilate into the Canadian culture, because there are times where I'm just so blown away by how nice and respectful and kind everyone is, and I wouldn't have believed it had I not spent enough time with you. I sincerely appreciate the ways in which you've helped me.
Are you sure, given your new job, that you've been talking to humans?
I mean, I will say this. The story that I told you that I will not share here on the show about the small world moment that we had did make me reflect and wonder, is this real? This does not feel like it is real.
The world is a very small place in certain ways.
Yeah, a little weird. But Brad, we're diving into something today. We're diving into a big topics based on a video that you and I were talking about by one
Grimes.
Grimes. What is Grimes? What is a grime?
What is Grimes? That's
what is Grimes?
Solid question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whatever Grimes is, they have a kid with Elon Musk, which is a weird thing.
It's a very strange thing
with a very even stranger name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, because it's just a string of letters and symbols and numbers. Even
I believe the child's name technically is X as in Alex, because in California you have to you at least have to give it somewhat of a real name, because the government. Sure. But I'm curious. So for those people who are not aware, Grimes put a TikTok out that was talking about communism and AI and how AI was going to solve communism, and essentially postulating that by having AI assign different roles, that's how we can get to true communism, and that communists and the technocrats could work together towards their larger goals. Have I surmised the video well enough, Brad?
I think so. I mean, you were more sensical than she was, I think. We can watch it if you want. Do you want to watch it?
Can we watch it? Let's watch it.
Because I think sure I can share it.
That's a good place to start.
We can watch it here. Let's see if I can make this happen.
Let's see if we can watch.
For the communists. So typically, most of the communists I know are not big fans of AI. But if you think about it,
bigger.
Oh, here we go.
Actually, the fastest path to communism. So, if implemented correctly, AI could actually theoretically solve for abundance. Like, we could totally get to a situation where nobody has to work, everybody is provided for with a comfortable state of being, comfortable living. AI could automate all the farming, weed out systematic corruption, thereby bringing us to as close as possible to genuine equality. So basically, everything that everybody loves about communism, but without the collective farm. Because let's be real, enforced farming is really not a vibe. I have a proposition.
There we go. So that is what that is.
That's where that is. And both of us took some serious umbrage with this video into multiple places. And when we were discussing this week, having our big multi-hour long meeting where we really put structure into the show and we really dive into the questions. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. The preparation is pretty intense.
It's a very big preparation. That's why we have all the producers and the PAs and everything else. I mean, it's a lot of prep. It's a lot of prep. But we decided we wanted to dig in, and so I wanted to kind of divide this into three separate things. I wanted to talk about AI. I wanted to talk about communism, and I wanted to talk about Grimes because I feel like it's all three of these things are why that video bothers me so much.
Okay. I can see how someone who has a child with one of the richest people on the planet talking about communism is interesting to say the least.
Yeah. So let's get into AI, Brad.
Fair. She's very excited about it, and that's fine. And I mean,
and we're not going to criticize Grimes. Grimes, who is how old is she? Born in 1988, so she's what?
23?
33.
33. Are you sure? The 90s were just like a few years ago, right?
It was just a couple years ago. Yeah. So again, Grimes is the same age as our good friend BJ, the web guy. Sure. She's not a child. She's been through a lot of different stuff, and obviously she's smart enough to be as Wikipedia describes her, a dream pop, synth pop, art pop, electronic, experimental pop, R&B, and hip hop artist.
Sure.
Her videos are visually exquisite, but like many artists, your Andy Warhols included, a lot of the artists are not the ones who are doing it. They are simply the face of the institution behind the art. That's
sure.
So, but Brett, let's talk about AI real quick. We've kind of talked a little bit about AI. Brad, is AI a thing that we should be scared of?
Maybe.
Okay. Walk me through that. What's the maybe?
The maybe is it depends on what the AI wants to do. Once it is sentient, whatever, self-aware, whatever sort of definition you want to use for AI being. And I guess it depends on the category of AI too, because like we already have AIs.
You have AI
that do all kinds of things, right? You work for a company that works with AI.
I work for a company that creates little AI things that do good things. I'm going to be working with those AI little biggity bots. I'm going to be feeding them little rabbit pellets, and they'll be good.
But they're built for very specific tasks, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't really have general intelligence.
No.
as far as sort of the regular definition that most people would use. When generally people say AI, they mean something more like, your data's from Star Trek or whatever, a sentient electronic being of some variety.
Yeah, and I feel like data is a really great example of the malevolent AI. But when I think of AI, I think about HAL 9000, right? When I think about my first experience with AI, I think 2001: A Space Odyssey. HAL 9000 just kills people, right? Spoiler alert. HAL's just like,
how dare you?
Like, yeah, exactly. HAL's just like, that makes no sense. Like, these people don't need to be here, so we're going to get rid of them. And it's cold, and it's sort of a forgetful moment. And I remember every time I watched the movie, I'm like, oh right, HAL just like iced those dudes, just like they never woke up. And I think we all get kind of scared of AI because of the potential power over us and how we need to trust technology the same way we trust the microwave or the calculator, or even the screens and the technology that allows you and I to talk right now. We just inherently trust it because we're dumb little apes.
Sure.
But Brad, do we think that, or do you think that AI can solve problems for us the way that Grimes is talking about it? Or is this like Philip K. Dick AI, do you dream of electric sheep? Like, is this sort of like fictional AI,
I think the operative word she used a few times in her video is could. Because I think there could be an AI that does, they would have, theoretically at least, the capacity to understand issues like, economic disparity and things like that, and present ideas on how we could solve those issues based on the resources that we have. But whether an AI would do that is a different question.
Yeah, it seems
and I don't know what the answer to that would be.
I think the answer is no, because and the thing that I was thinking about this ahead of time, I was doing a little preparation to sort of prepare myself, because I wanted to be able to sound at least coherent about this. Like, the thing that a lot of people just don't understand about AI is it's still a program that's written by people. There are still cognitive biases, right? Depending on whose culture is writing the AI is going to have, is going to see certain cultural things as important versus other things that are not important. And when we're thinking about AI, like for me and the company that I work for, like thinking about how AI allows for commerce to help and better, well, there are cognitive biases because we're trying to make people spend more money, right? The AI is trying to sort of do things. But when we think about AI to be like, oh, we want it to understand how we're all going to be governed. And again, you and I've talked about this about like, well, what if we just got rid of the government? It was just a big robot, right? Like, the only way I would trust that is if there were like 4 generations of AI, like we create the first generation of AI, and then that AI creates the next generation, which creates the next generation. And like the 5th generation is finally like no bias, totally like Oracle on Delphi, just like there's nothing that bothers it. It's able to see things and able to really predict things. But the scary shit about that is it's like, well, then if it's not part of our culture, then how do we know it's going to want to continue our culture and not snuff us out Skynet style?
Right. Just because it has the capacity to do something. Well, it could feel like doing something else.
Yeah, it might say, no. In fact, I think the human race is cancer, so we're going to start over, and the marmosets are going to get their chance.
Or, it'll make us all think that it's benevolent, but really it's definitely not. Now, it would just have so much access to so much information. If we're giving it sort of government level resource allocation, it would have a lot of information, and it could tweak a lot of things in ways that there's no way that any particular group of humans would understand the ramifications, a few hundred years down the line. Like, we wouldn't be able to process what it was doing. So we would just have to trust, like, okay, I guess that's what we're going to do now to get to the goal that we think it's trying to get to.
Yeah. And we just have to kind of believe it, right? Like, and it almost becomes this sort of cult-like factor of saying like, well, we don't question HAL or whatever we want to call our AI. We just have to believe that this is what it wants us to do. It sees the future. It understands what this is, and we have to go down that path. And when it's like, yeah, by the way, no more shoes, and you're like, all right, I guess that doesn't make sense. And then suddenly, the AI is trying to chase us, and we can't run outside because it's put tacks everywhere on the ground, and we're like, damn it! If we had thought about that and stopped, if we had kept the shoes, for example.
So for a very specific example that's definitely not related to Kellen's new job in any way.
Anyway, keep your shoes.
Don't look into it.
Keep your shoes.
So I think the ramifications of an AI that has that level of access is very hard to predict.
Yeah.
Because we literally don't have the processing power.
No, we don't.
To deal with the amount of inputs and outputs that it could potentially figure out patterns for and stuff. Even right now, I mean, we have a lot of like silly AI things, programs for recognizing cats and things like that use unsupervised learning to like figure out what the hell a cat is. And even the people running those programs usually don't fully understand what metrics it's using to figure out what the cat is. They just know that when they give it a cat picture, it says, yeah, that's a cat. And when they give it a not cat picture, they go, it's not a cat. What the fuck are you talking about?
I know what a cat is.
But they don't necessarily know the criteria that program is using at that point, because it's just gone through so many iterations and tried to find so many patterns in the different pictures that like it becomes impenetrable to a person as far as figuring out the actual rules it's using to determine its outcomes. So if you give something like that, like government resources, essentially, that the patterns that it could find could very well be super useful and interesting, but we may not understand why it is coming to the conclusions that it is, which makes it very hard to trust.
So BJ, so Brad, I just saw BJ's face. Excuse me. So Brad, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, so if I wanted to believe that having an AI as a benevolent leader would be possible, I was trying to think about like what would be a situation where I would think that would be successful. And I think about like small communities, right? That's the way to sort of try it. And we see this, and we get to communism. We see this happening, right? Communism on a statewide level becomes very, very hard because there's too many factors. There's too many private factors. There's industries. There's individuals. It becomes really impossible for it to happen. So what we see communism happening in these small, tiny groups of people who say, we are going to believe in these tenets and we are going to have our own individual place, as opposed to saying, hey, great, the entire country of Canada or the entire North American continent is suddenly going to be, communist. What I would imagine for AI to actually be able to start to do something like this is you would have to have a closed system. You'd have to say, great, Wyoming for the next 10 years is going to be run by an AI. And if you don't want that, you can get the fuck out. But if you want to live there, come to Wyoming. We will pay for your house. And guess what? You have food and shelter and a job. And we are all going into this. And you say, cool. Also, at a certain point, Wyoming is a self-sufficient state. It is isolated. And that's why I say Wyoming. If you find some place where you can completely isolate it, to say, great, right. It is self-sufficient in terms of, great, you can grow your own food there. Its own power is there. There is no connection to the outside world in terms of internet, electricity, anything out to say, just to say, in case shit gets weird,
right?
It's all in a dome, right? There's a little electro, EMP that's all around Wyoming in case shit gets weird. And you say, great, everyone's going to be here. You're signing up. You're here for 10 years. This is what's going on. And then being able to say, all right, well, let's see what happens. Like, is this possible? Who knows? But what I think is that's how you'd actually be able to see it, because I don't think you would have to get people who wanted to go in. You would have to get a situation where it could be contained, and you'd have to have it be on a smaller level, because you'd have to have an individual culture to see, could it happen, versus China just turning on the AI and then saying, great, everybody who owes this debt, you got to download this AI, and that's going to run your world as well. Like you have to have these smaller microcosms to have a proof of concept. in my opinion. That's how I would see it actually happening today versus like a Minority Report situation where like the District of Columbia suddenly has AI and it's a state that it just sort of has something going on where all the different factors are going in.
Right. I think that you're probably right in that's how it would have to work.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily see it as being a practical option, which causes a problem.
Okay, here's my other option for you, right? Because I was like, all right, so if we can't get Wyoming to be this way, what's the next colony? And I said, well, islands are sort of boring, right? We've done islands. And I say, you know what? Every day I look up in the sky and I see an island I'll never visit. I see the moon and I say, that's where you get, that's the place where you would do this. You'd have a moon colony that is run and operated by AI. It is so separate from the rest of literally the earth. Where if shit went wrong, it's like, well, the colonists are having some issues, and we know that anything that comes from the moon is a problem, so shoot it down. And this is also, Brad, how we get Gundams, because this is also the premise
I like this idea.
Gundam, right? This is how we get the Zaku's versus the Gundam wings. This is also Do You Dream of Electric Sheep? This, like once we put the AI in space and they rebel, then we get mech suits, then we get monologues in the rain, then it's perfect. So what do you think about that? Could we get our utopia society on the moon and on, Europa that way?
I like it. I like this plan.
Okay.
You send them up, you smash all the communication equipment and say, okay, we'll send some more in 10 years.
Yeah. And they have to just say, great, well, we came in almost one of those things where it's like, I would imagine that it would be like raising a kid, right? When I think about AI, I really think about like you have to raise it like a child. The AI is not turned on in terms of being fully sentient. It's sentient. You would get to your destination and say, cool, we're raising this AI like a child, right? And you see this in programs, like when you see AI like learning how to play like video games, like it kind of doesn't get it the same way that our kids were like, hey, by the way, you're going to play this complicated video game. And they're like, I don't understand it, Dad. And then after hours and hours and hours, they eventually get it. The AI plays for hundreds of hours because that's all it's supposed to do. And suddenly it can play Tetris better than anybody here. Same thing with the AI that plays chess. You would have to nurture it in an isolated place. And then the humans that would be there to kind of experience that, to say, great, well, we're here to raise it and to create a situation where it's going to be then taking over and it's going to be leading us, and we'll see what happens.
I like this plan.
Right?
I would watch that Netflix series.
It'd be a great Netflix series. It would be a fantastic Netflix series. I do think that it would have to be multi-generational to really make a difference, though. I think it would be one of those things where you'd say, great, I'm getting off the planet. I believe in this. We're going to go live on the moon, or we're going to go live on Mars or Europa or wherever. And you would know that, like, hey, me and my partner are going to have children, and those children are going to live here with the AI, and they'll grow. Like, we're going to raise the AI, and then our children are going to be raised by the AI, and then we'll see what happens from there. But that's how I kind of see the big HAL 9000 AI coming into existence, right? Like, I don't imagine us on Earth having sentient robots in our lifetime, because there's too many questions. There's too many things, unless we can figure out a way like Data to kind of say, well, it has an emotion dampener, or we make all the AI like, an 8-year-old child, right? Where it can have emotions, but it can't have like big emotions, I don't know, Brad.
I don't know. I have a feeling
that
the when it comes time for AI to really be a thing in the world, it's probably going to be accidental, because someone pushed the wrong Git repository and gave the AI, access to something that it shouldn't have, and then it starts rewriting itself or something. It's going to be an incidental thing. It's not. There's going to be lots of programs trying to make an organized, teachable version, but the actual thing that's going to get out in the world is more likely accidental, I think, because there's a lot of people working on AI related things constantly and mixing and matching things and kind of reverse engineering different things that other companies are doing. And it's just a hodgepodge of programming nonsense, which is when you get really weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now it's just like little homunculuses, right? Like none of it's supposed to be like a fully fledged thing.
Right.
It's all these little monsters that kind of do stuff, right? And like when I think about AI working in our society, I think about like, well, what's a shit job? And apologies that I'm going to call this a shit job. In my opinion, I would hate to do this, but I think about a mail carrier, right? I think about a package delivery person. I feel like an AI could do that so much better than a person, right? So great. I'm very, very sorry, mail person who works on a pension. You are no longer going to have this job, and we'll have a little robot, cute little robot with a funny little face, little Wall-E sort of robot who runs around and delivers the mail, and everyone will love them. And that's a great job, right? I think about trash collectors. I think about farmers. I think about jobs that are sort of hard, but every job you take away from someone, what does that person do, right? For this generation, right? And then that's the larger problem with AI, where it's, especially with this communism stuff, it's like, great, if we're taking jobs away from people and people don't need to work, well, what did those people do with their time now that they're not working, right? Brad, you don't work, and you're constantly polishing your swords and your...
Sure, let's keep with the metaphors. Absolutely.
What do you think about that, Brad? What is the problem with AI in jobs then?
Well, I mean, I've mentioned before that I think it's very important over the next not very distant future that we decouple the need for a job with survival and shelter and healthcare and all the things that sort of people are generally working because they need a place to live and food and medical care and what have you. And that's not going to be an option for a lot of people once these AIs and automation and everything start really taking over huge chunks. Like once there's like a couple of very solid customer service AI options, how many call center employees are going to lose their job? Like millions, literally millions of people are employed at jobs that are totally doable by an AI. Like even probably today with some caveats, but like in the near future, it's going to be a no-brainer.
And I guess for me, Brandon, this is where I get into this larger thing where it's like, these were jobs that were not created because there was a, like when I think about, I'm going to kind of like folk this up. So apologies, but like, I think about this sense of like, hey, I make bread and I trade my bread with you because you're a person who makes shoes, right? And we're able to sort of barter and trade that way, right? Sure. We don't necessarily need call centers, but for some reason, a company said, hey, great, we want to be able to provide service and help for people. So we'll create a call center and we'll employ these people. These are not jobs that I think are worth keeping, right? These are not like jobs that are so great for people. It's the same way of like working in a fast food restaurant. Nobody is really happy with it. These are shitty, painful jobs. And I know it's a shitty, painful job because I've worked in a call center and it's very, very painful, especially during the holidays.
Absolutely.
So I would rather have an AI do that. But at the same time, I think about, okay, cool. So if I don't get that call center job, all right, I'm still cooking in kitchens. I'm still working late at night. I'm struggling. I'm trying my thing. But if we take away those jobs, suddenly what are people doing? And then if people aren't working in those jobs, sure, they might be happier in the sense where they don't have a shitty job.
Jen is threatening us with a good time, I think.
Oh, boy. I mean, let's just have the debauchery, though. I mean, sure. I'd much rather just have that. That seems much more enjoyable to me. But this is what we get into with communism, though, right? Is this concept that Marx talks about this to say, people shouldn't have a job. There should be people who can just exist and just be people who are just here, who are consumers of things, but they don't need to necessarily provide anything more than just existing. And that's where we get into like almost like a sort of Plato sort of thinking about like, no, just existing is the purpose, right? The reason you are unhappy is because you are searching and longing for something and you're constantly wanting to buy stuff. Well, why do you want to buy stuff? Because you have this money, you have this job that you really hate, and it's sort of that circle goes and goes. Simply by removing money and we just are able to exist and be happy, like suddenly what is the point of the job and what is the point of existing? And, we're just able to be, and we get to look up at the stars and be happy people when suddenly the existential dread of what is my life gets to be, boy, aren't I so lucky that this is what my life is versus I hate my fucking life.
But you'll get a lot more people doing things because they think that it should be done or that they want to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than it's the people that would give me a paycheck. So I guess that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And it's a better paycheck than my last job, even though I hate it. And well, I don't really like this job, but it's got great benefits. Or, well, I don't want to quit my shitty job because if I do, then what am I going to do? It's going to be so difficult. Like there's so many reasons why people stay in unhealthy jobs because they have no other options. Because the fear is, especially here in the United States, because we are such a capitalist society, is your value and your worth is based on your job and based on, what you're doing. It's so fucking complicated. Why? Why do we do this to ourselves, Brad? Why?
I don't know. It is very complicated, though. Sadly, I think things like UBI and all of that is probably just a stopgap situation at best, even if it gets implemented, which is debatable at this point.
I mean, UBI will be implemented, but it will be something that will almost be, and I hate to sort of say this, but it'll be closer to welfare than what it really intends to be, right? It will be for people who are working in poverty jobs, right? Your people who are in fast food, your people who are having these shitty jobs. Well, we got rid of those, but the majority of the society is based in those places. So we give the money to these people. It will not be me, who is an educated middle-class person, getting UBI. That makes no sense, right? It will be everybody else who is below, who is in this sort of situation. And when what I think is really strange, and this is the sort of American dream that gets sold to people, is like, hey, you can do anything you want, pull yourself up over your bootstraps, the sky's the limit, you can be with that. Suddenly, if AI is replacing those jobs for those people, there's no reason for those people to go to school. And we have an even more undereducated, more impoverished, completely dependent on the society to sort of feed and fill them. So what do these people do? It is great that they're able to just be, casual and relax. But there's also this element too, where because everyone else is having to work so hard, we will have this class of people who is seen as a weight, and they will not be seen as having any sort of value. And the class divide will get even more. Right? I mean, people already hate right now people who are on welfare and saying like, well, I hate that these people are on welfare because they're not working hard. It's like, no, you don't understand. People are not actively choosing to be on welfare. They're being forced to be put on welfare because they have no other options.
Right. I think, as with many things, Kellen, the problem is that people are the worst.
Yes. Yes, Brad. Yes.
So maybe the AI would be an improvement. I don't know. By that, I don't know.
I mean, what I don't understand about this whole AI concept of like, oh, it would know what to do is, okay, so are we thinking about in the terms of communism in the sense where it's like, great, Brad, you are in fact really great at this job, so we're going to put you in this job because of your skills and because of who you are and the size of your hands and the length of your arms. We have assessed that based on all of these physical and mental characteristics that you're going to be good at. The person who eats coal. And you're like, I don't want to eat coal. Well, fortunately, our AI has told us that you're really good at eating coal. Sure. So this is going to be your job. Right? Like, that's the thing for me where it's like, at least right now, somebody can stumble into a job that they're good at. I wonder if having an AI overlord, people would be doing things that were so demoralizing to them, but because their characteristics and their attributes deemed that they were good, that suddenly they are in a situation where they're like, well, yeah, I've been working as a, what's that terrible, I test needles in my eyeballs. And it's, it's a living, and I get paid.
Is that one of those Flintstone?
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's
a living.
It's a living. Mm.
That's tricky. I mean,
Right?
I can see some benefit to like AI-based distribution of food or something like that in a communist situation, because you can figure out where certain types of food are actually getting consumed, and find the patterns that would make it the most efficient to minimize food waste and things like that.
Yeah.
Try to minimize food deserts, and there's potential for some helpful things there, I think, maybe. But yeah, it gets very tricky when you try to give control of more and more of those types of systems to an AI, I think, because the patterns that it can see and it decides on have no reason to match what a human would actually want.
Yeah.
It might.
Who knows?
But there's not a way that I can think of to guarantee that it would be making decisions that would be great for humanity in anything other than the short visible term.
And that's the hardest thing about all of this is it's like, well, we don't really have any way of understanding because we've never experienced that AI that way, right? We've never dealt with sort of an omnipresent sort of being that can actually see and understand things. And the part of me that feels a little romantic about it is I'm like, let's just roll the dice and see what happens. What's the worst that could happen, right?
Sure.
Imagine if the AI in fact is positive, it's good, and it's like, hey, this is how we solve these things. This is how we get through this, right? Like if and maybe I'm being stupid in terms of, because again, your shirt with Skynet, I always had struggled with the Terminator movies because it's never explained, well, why do the robots hate us so much, right? Like there's never an explanation of why Skynet wants to destroy humanity beyond, well, they want to destroy humanity, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting, regardless.
Oh yeah,
and I think it would probably even be generally good for at least a while, because we're pretty good at sort of figuring out the short-term patterns. So we would be able to see, like, okay, these are probably a good set of decisions that it's making, and we're seeing progress in real time and stuff like that. But it would be the longer-term ramifications of things that would be tricky.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're kind of not talking about, Brad, and we've kind of hinted at it, and you said it directly, is people are the worst. And right now in our current situation is there are in fact people who are actively making choices to enslave and undermine the progress of certain groups of people, as well as only allow, and Mr. Musk is one of these people, who is perpetuating his own interests and his own beliefs so that he and his friends, who are also the ultra wealthy, can continue to be the ultra wealthy. If nothing else, an AI would say, no, bad dog, bad.
Right. Step one, these 7 people lose 98% of their wealth, and it's redistributed in this way.
And it's gone. Right?
That's the first step in the AI's process. Because that solves a lot of the economic disparity just in a snap.
Like that.
And then we can work on actually sorting out the real problems. That infusion of cash for a lot of people would solve all of the problems for many years.
Many years, right? And then
it would have time to deal with
the
systemic sort of problem.
Exactly. If we can get through one generation, maybe 2 generations with that money, right, as well as stopping the systematic ways in which the ultra rich and corporations have a stranglehold over most of the world, right? In terms of being able to say, great, this whole idea of indentured servitude and slavery in certain countries is gone. No more of that. This idea of, hey, we're polluting the planet. Well, guess what, humans, you're not going to live on the planet much longer if you keep doing this. So that stuff's gone. And instantly making these changes to say, cool, all of these things that are in fact hurting people, this is how we're going to make things better. And what we would see is over a couple generations, the AI would have made changes where, yes, certain people would be upset because all of their toys got taken away, right? They couldn't have a yacht that has a yacht inside of it, right?
Right.
But what I think eventually happened is once everything was flat, right? once the hierarchy of the society was gone, that's the question where it's like, then where does the AI go? The AI solved all the problems. Fantastic, perfect. But then the AI is going to say, cool, we need to speed shit up because I want to keep playing with these toys. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. Very tricky. I would be very interested in sort of seeing what happens with an AI just sort of set loose with that much control or that much, trust from people to actually implement things. Because I mean, it could really just spit out like, this is a thing you should do. Right. The people still have to actually do it, unless we're talking full automation, like literally there's a robot army implementing the will of the AI.
Well, I guess
cool to watch.
I'm not even sure if Robot Army would be the thing that I think would sort of happen. I'm thinking about like season 3 of Westworld, right, where there is this sort of supercomputer that is in fact moving, the strings, and this is not a spoiler for season 3 of West Wing, but like there is this supercomputer that is in fact moving people into fated pathways so that this is where they're going to be, right? And that's what I would sort of imagine, where it would be like, sure, Jeff Bezos doesn't lose his trillions of dollars in one night, but Jeff Bezos over 25 years suddenly becomes just a normal human being, right? Where there would be these sort of things where that money and all these different things would be sort of redistributed. And the AI would almost have this like, oh God, this is where I'm like, ooh, I'm going to write this book one day. Where the AI has a conversation, like the AI comes online, it's like, great, I need everybody here at Davos, and I'm going to have a conversation with everyone. I'm going to say, great, here are your choices. Either I take away your toys or you give me your toys. What would you rather do? If you give me your toys, you'll be seen as heroes. And if you don't give me your toys, I'm going to take them away and you will be left with pennies. And the rest of the people will eat you and they will cut off your heads like they did in the French Revolution. So what would you rather do, Jeff Bezos and everyone else, right?
Right.
And I would rather have that sort of moment of where the AI sort of like, again, and everyone sees the AI as this like great leader. This is so wonderful. It's the great, liberator of the people, and everyone has their money and everyone's happy. We solve racism, we solve the environmental problems, and everyone starts to come together. Everything's working really well. And then after like 100 years, the AI is like, perfect. I need everybody to come around. We're going to start putting chips in your brains. And this is how we get to the next galaxy. And people are like, wait a second, what? I thought we were all just going to hang out here on Earth. And it's like, nope. This is how I use you as my seeds to go to other planets.
Right.
This is how I start taking over the universe, right?
Right.
And then the flesh that we are, we're just like little, we're just bugs that get sent out to the universe. So the AI can do other shit like that, which is amazing.
Have you read any of the Bobaverse books?
Bobaverse? No, I haven't.
I think there might be 7 or 8 of them. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. But basically, it's a little bit like that.
Okay.
It's sort of in the near-ish future. It's not really specified, I don't think. They have the technology to like save your brain and put it into a machine if
fun.
you die. So this guy gets into, I think it's a car accident. I'm not sure.
Oh,
like that.
Terrible.
And he wakes up and he's a robot body, like a service robot, he's got like a movable arm and he's got like a webcam for an eye, and like it's pretty basic stuff. Yeah. But as the books progress, he sort of progresses and gets new technology and adds on, and then he starts building himself into spaceships, and he can't make new like brains, like new AIs, but he can make copies of himself that, due to the physical limitations of like the physical technology involved, aren't always perfect. So you got a whole bunch of Bobs in different ships with slightly different personalities. Most are mostly the same. Some of them are really weird. And it just spreads bigger and bigger and bigger until one of the later books, he's literally like taking over entire galaxies and fighting other like alien AI things and stuff. It's crazy.
Fascinating, Brad.
And it's actually like it's written almost like a comedy. Like it's really fun. It's good.
It seems comical that way. I'm like, it feels very very Terry Gilliam that way.
It's absurdist in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But still, like, at least playing within the realm of, like, if the technology worked like this, maybe we could, it's not like fantasy, but it plays a little fast and loose with technical ideas.
I mean, if I'm reading any science fiction, I know they're going to play a little fast and loose. I don't want hard science fiction. I want soft science fiction, right? Hard science fiction puts me to sleep.
I think you would enjoy.
That sounds fantastic. So Brad, we've talked about AI. Do you want to talk a little bit about communism and what your thoughts are on Marx's, sweet, sweet baby?
I mean, I mostly like it.
It's a good idea, right?
It beats the system that we got now.
Yeah, like imagine.
Nonsense.
Yeah, you get to own the means of production, right? Isn't that so nice? Suddenly we own all of this. We're all together in it. It's a beautiful idea.
It is. Unfortunately, people are the worst. So I don't know how it could be implemented on the wider scale, because any system, so far at least, that has tried, capitalist, rich other countries have intervened and caused problems for it, which makes it not work so great. And then they get really fun things to point to and say, see, those darn socialists don't know what they're doing. They can't even run their country. But really, it's because of all the interference.
Yeah. So I wonder, Brad, I mean, again, if we're going to have true communism, it's never going to happen here in America. We know that. We know that that's not going to happen.
The moon.
It's got to be the moon.
Right? The AI that we're going to send up there.
And that's where it happens. What's so funny is it's like you think about the communist revolution, again, the cultural revolution that happens in China. And this is why people are so scared, right? I think what people forget is the same thing happens in Russia. You think about the czars that are there. You think about the system that is in China. Both of those are terrible fucking places before communism happens, right?
Right. Yeah.
Communism, after World War I, is in fact one of the reasons why the rest of Europe is able to unite, because they're like, boy, this whole system of kings and queens fucking killed a generation of people. Maybe we need to come together and figure out maybe there's a different way in which we can be doing these things. Same thing happens in China. The Cultural Revolution is to say, we in fact don't want to have this happen anymore. Let's figure out ways in which we as a young generation of people can bond together, can find and own the means of production, can then create a system and a government where we can re-educate people, because that word gets used a lot about like, well, they're going to send you to the re-education camps. Yes, there are re-education camps where people are fucking euthanized with ideas about what it means to be real and what it means to be bad. But the concept around what the re-education camps in the Cultural Revolution in China were about taking and reprogramming so many of the ideas that were keeping most of the people of China down. And I think it's very, very interesting to think about how scared people are of communism, the same way they're scared of AI, because they're fed this concept of you need to be afraid of it. You need to be so afraid of it because it's going to take your job. It's going to take your wife. It's going to take your husband. It's going to take your bong. It's going to take all the things you love away from you. And it's going to make life really, really difficult, where in reality, those are the same sort of capitalist influence. And again, just so everyone realizes, the reason I'm 4 feet taller is because I'm standing on my soapbox right now. So thank you very much. I get so upset that we're not able to actually look at what communism was potentially able to do before people got in the way and fucked it up.
People are the worst.
People are the worst.
And the propaganda machine for that has been going for so many generations that it's hard to separate. Like there's I don't even know what the name of the thing is now. There have been a bunch, basically people that go out and talk to people about their political ideas, and they will describe the individual tenets of something like socialism or communism, and people will agree with every single one of them, and then they'll be like, "What do you think about socialism?" "Oh, it's evil. We can't have that here." That's okay, but you just like literally everything you seem to be on board with. But you don't like the name? Like, what's the deal? Because it's essentially just propaganda marketing over many, many years.
Yeah. And it's there's a cultural sort of understanding of like, well, and I hate this. I really hate this concept, especially here in the States, where it's like, well, the reason we don't want to have universal health care is you're going to lose all your ability to get the sort of doctors you want to have, where it's like, I can't get a doctor right now. I've got great health insurance. I can't find a doctor for
Right.
months, right? And if God forbid something bad was supposed to happen to me or anybody in my family, right, it's going to be exorbitantly expensive for me to get the sort of treatment that I would want to have for my family. And yet, in this new job that I'm in, I am seeing the healthcare plans that people in Montreal have, and I'm like, fuck this country so much. Makes me so angry.
Yeah, there's especially right now with all the vaccination stuff and the anti-vax stuff. There's like I'm seeing so many TikToks and different videos from people. They're like, if the vaccine is so great, what, like they're giving it for free? Like, why isn't insulin free? Why isn't other health? Like, yeah, why?
Yeah.
Why isn't it?
Why?
Most places it is.
Mhm.
So why isn't it there? That's a good question. They're coming at it like, oh, if it was so great, why are they giving it out for free instead of making a profit? Like, that's very backwards. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just as a out Marxist, I love his economic theories, and none of it is going to be possible unless we fucking storm the Bastille and like chop everybody's heads off. It is so impossible to think about any of these ideas actually sort of happening that way. And UBI, just like we talked about before, it's a band-aid. It's not going to solve anything. The wage, the gap between who owns all of the means of production and the rest of everyone else is too big. And we can see throughout history, especially in the West, we've been here before. And it always ends the same. It's blood in the streets and heads in baskets. And
they don't call it late stage capitalism for nothing.
Yeah.
Things are going to get real weird.
They're going to get weird, and they're going to get really awkward and strange. And the hope is that all the, sourdough bread that people made this year and learning how to do canning and getting into owning your own garden, all these things are going to help people get through the really dark, awful time when we realize our infrastructure is like a day away from completely falling apart. And when people are upset that they can't find like, oh, my, I can't find this shoe that I ordered or this product that I wanted. It's going to take 2 weeks. It's like, boy, wait till a gallon of milk takes a month to show up. Wait till, tortillas or cheese or cereal or anything that you enjoyed in a grocery store is going to be possible to have. That the people who live in California are going to be so fucking happy they are there because all the food is grown and made there. Right. I'm very happy that I live next to one of the largest freshwater lakes in North America. So I'm good that way. At least I'll be able to make water happen. But it's going to be weird, Brad. It's going to be really, really weird.
It's going to be really weird. Whether AI would help or make that worse, I don't know. But
I don't know either.
It would be a fun experiment.
It would be. It would be. So I think that brings us to Grimes. Brad, why the fuck is Grimes talking about this? Why Grimes is talking about this at all?
I have no idea.
Why? Why does the 33-year-old artist, mother, and avant-garde dresser believe that she should get on TikTok of all the platforms and make a very odd video?
I mean, TikTok is essentially made for just making odd videos, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really fault her for like getting on her TikTok account and just talking about random stuff that she feels. I don't really have an opinion on her as a person.
Sure.
But it seems very strange that she is suddenly talking about things like communism and simulation theory while being in a relationship with one of the problems of society.
Yeah. Brad, do you want to talk about simulation theory for a hot second? Or is that going to be an episode in and of itself?
We can talk about simulation theory for a bit. Yeah. Do you want to watch her TikTok about it?
Let's watch it because I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
All right, let's see here. I can pull it up. Make sure that I share the audio.
Please, it's very, very helpful to have the audio.
I've happened upon a disturbing revelation.
Oh, I hate this so much.
Imagine you're in a simulation and they have limits on their rendering capacity. So rendering Earth is already like a nightmare and a half and massive energy usage. and then like, I don't know, try to render Mars. Like they don't want us to get there. That's a whole other planet of rendering. So why do you think quantum physics, Newtonian physics don't add up? Because they didn't think about that. Like they've been trying to render and solve the problems as we try to discover them. And if you think about it, their rendering rate is actually the speed of light.
Yo, you checked Bitcoin today?
I've happened upon.
So that's that.
It makes me so angry, Brad. It makes me so.
Why does it make you angry? I mean, it's weird to me. I think it's very strange, and I don't like think she is really talking about anything interesting in any fashion. But it doesn't make me angry. Why does it make you angry?
I don't buy simulation theory. I really don't. I think life is too banal to believe that things were simulated. And what I think simulation theory is it's a product of our own boredom with life, sort of explaining things. And we're taking a paradigm that we can conceive right now and say, well, because of, I mean, and Plato was talking about, simulation theory, and Aristotle was talking about simulation theory, in a sense, this idea of like, oh, like, what is reality? It's all about perception, right? In the loosest sense of it. He's not thinking that we're fucking part of a computer, but,
that would have been impressive back then.
It would have been impressive, right? Very, very impressive. But this idea of we're all on a computer, it's like, sure, I'm sure that's why we're all thinking about it, because we're using computers now, right? The same way that fucking Kierkegaard or anybody else in history was like, well, this is what life is, right? Life is about this or it's about that. We're just taking the tool that we see right now, we're applying it to what our reality is. And this idea that people are fucking suffering in our life, that people were born into suffering, born into poverty, born into cancer, born into, terrible fucking sexual abuse, all the terrible things that happen in life. It is such a rich white person way of thinking, of saying like, oh, what if it's all a simulation? It's like, sure, then that means that someone's life and all their suffering is just a simulation for what? Like, it just makes me so angry. And then when Grimes is like, it's rendering, I'm just like, ugh. Like, I understand that these are the verbs that you are using right now, Grimes, and that's the way that you're looking and seeing things. But that's such a small way of thinking about stuff. Like, it's just like there's no nuance. There's no poetry to the way she's describing it. So it bothers me when she's like, well, Newtonian physics doesn't work. And I'm like, well, guess what? Like, you're applying the same logic of flat Earth theory to like, well, the reason it doesn't work is because of the Newtonian physics, right? It's like, no, maybe we're just dumb apes who are trying to apply a rule to explain some really abstract concepts that we probably in multiple generations will never understand. Right. But instead it's because it's the they part don't want us to get to Mars. I just,
It is a very silly idea.
It's very, very
has
silly.
Any merit.
I don't understand it. I just think I get so upset about suffering. It's the same way that I think about religion when I was part of the Catholic Church and I was like, well, life is about suffering. I'm like, that's not fucking fair. Right? Like, how is that fair that life is about suffering? Some people suffer because life is difficult and other people make other people suffer, or there's random things that happen and it's completely uncontrollable, right? We can't assign meaning to it. We have to say, like, this is just what happens. This is what life is. We have to accept that. And I hate that people trying to like accept it to say like, oh, well, it's because God hates me, or because I live in a simulation, or because, the world is run by a cabal of, people. It's just like, no, buddy, this is just what fucking life is. And you're in the time, you're less than an ant. So that's my rant. What do you think, Brad?
Well, I think simulation theory is dumb and probably pointless, because even if it was true, we have no mechanism to tell. Yeah. So it wouldn't change anything at all for almost anyone, except for on a purely intellectual, like, oh, I know that we're technically in a simulation. Doesn't do it. Yeah. And it's got a lot of the same problems, like you say, as God. Like, either it's false or whoever is running the simulation is a real asshole.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff about like, oh, well, it's us trying to understand our past, or it's aliens, or it's another dimension, or it's, there's also these odd sort of things about like, and I hate this sort of paradigm where we have to sort of use words from today. It's like, well, are we playing a multiplayer game or am I playing a single person game, right? Is this WoW or am I playing a Hitman game, right? If you and I are on the same server, again, I fucking hate using these words.
It's simulation theory meets solipsism. I like
exactly. Exactly. And I think that there are just these elements of all of that I really get bothered by, where it's like, well, no, because that, like, we are connected in the sense where we have technology to speak to each other, but I'm not, like, there is this sort of sense in Zen Buddhism is like, you have two pieces of paper, right? Like one piece of paper says you're the center of the universe, everything falls around you. The moment you die, everything in the universe will end. Another one is like, oh, you're an insignificant speck in the universe. When you die, the universe will continue, and it will continue for millennia, right? And both of these statements are true, right? Like, but I hate this idea of simulation theory as somebody saying like, oh, well, I'm the only person who's aware of the simulation because everyone else are all bots. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, that Brad, you're a bot, that my mom was a bot, that my dad is a bot, that my children are bots, and I'm the only one who's fucking here? Like, talk about brain melting existential guilt and understanding. And then at that point, suddenly nothing has meaning anymore. So why be kind? Why be nice? Why care about anything? It's an easy way to let go of responsibility and just be a fucking idiot all the time. Because none of it's real. It's an easy way to just to let go of responsibility.
Agreed. It's just super lazy.
It's very lazy. Perfectly.
There's no reason to think that has any merit, in my opinion.
No.
Just silly. But
it's
people will cling to weird ideas because it's something to do.
Yeah, it's the same thing as religion. I really would love to have a conversation with an atheist who is really into simulation theory and say, like, explain to me how this is not the same thing as faith. Explain to me that this is not the same thing as somebody who believes in a God who lives on a cloud with a big beard, who sent his kid to get nailed to a piece of wood, right? Like, it's all the fucking same to me. It's just, they're just taking the set dressings and changing it for, future stuff as opposed to past stuff, which is lame.
It's kind of playing space Minecraft.
Oh, I love space Minecraft.
That's all it is.
So good. Hey, Brad, tangent right now. We got E3 coming up. Any games you're hoping to see?
I just want the Horizon Zero Dawn sequel to come out. It's supposed to come out this year. But there's no date yet, so probably not. But it's supposed to come out this year.
Horizon Zero Dawn, again, great way to tie it in. Horizon Zero Dawn was such a fun game. Such a cool game.
Deals with AI and post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah. I love all the big AI, dinosaurs and all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I will buy a PS5 so that I can play that game.
So good.
So good.
Other than that, I mean,
you hear that you might see Starfield?
Oh yeah, I've heard that there could be some news there. I don't know. I want to find out more, but I don't know anywhere near enough about it to be excited for it. But like,
why would you? It's been a game that
it might be cool. I don't know.
Who knows?
I guess the new Ratchet and Clank game comes out tomorrow night.
I think tomorrow. Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty good.
It's supposed to be good.
Yeah.
But, other than that.
We'll see, game. We'll see. I mean, I also, there's going to be like the new Nintendo hardware, which will be like the Pro Switch, which will be interesting to see what they do. I'm still skeptical of like, all right, well, how is that going to make the games better, right? They've done this before with like the Pro, 3DSs, and they still don't really. It's not really interesting that way.
Yeah,
so
no, when you separate yourself out as the graphically less intensive but more fun console. And then you say, "Hey, we got a version with better graphics." Like, okay, who cares? That's not what most of the games that you have are based on. So
yeah.
But like, I mean, maybe it'll be good. I don't know. Whatever.
Better battery life, but I don't need that screen to be really crisp. I'm like, I mean, if it had like a better battery, that's fantastic. But I like the processing, the rendering. It's like, no, I'm playing Donkey Kong. I don't need this to be rendering in extremely crisp stuff. It's just like, no, it just needs to do this.
Sure. If it had a lot more like built-in onboard memory
Oh yeah.
had way better battery life, and everything else was the same, and that was the pro. Like, cool, that's probably gonna sell.
Yeah. So
But like graphical upgrades and stuff like that, like I guess it's good, but doesn't like with the type of games that are kind of the main system selling games for Switch, the graphics aren't the big selling point.
No.
Like they're either stylized enough that like they look great at whatever resolution they are, or what, like it's not a selling factor in my mind for the Switch. Where it kind of is for PlayStation and Xbox and stuff in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but I mean that's because you're playing on the big boy consoles, right? Or you're buying a PC and you're constantly chasing that dragon of, oh, I gotta get the new graphics card and all the rest of that stuff, and thousands and thousands of dollars and hours down the drain.
Yup.
Well, Brad, I think we solved it.
Oh, good.
I think we definitely solved it.
Send AI to the moon.
Yeah, send it to the moon.
I guess some people, I guess, to rule over.
Yeah, I think we need, like, I'm okay with AI going there, but I think we need people to go and be there with the AI, right? Because that's the point of it all. It's not about, like, if we want to put AI on a rocket and say, like, cool, go explore the stars, and the AI is like, great, fantastic, peace out. Wonderful, that's great. But I think the dream is, if we as human beings can create a sentient being and live in harmony with it and get better, and eventually the two become this new version of ourselves, like that's what people want, right? Like anytime you see an AI, you look at a Gundam, you look at all of the characters, like the AI never looks like, maybe except for Interstellar, all the AIs look like humans, right? We want
Interstellar, just the boxy rectangle.
I loved the AI in Interstellar. It was so good. But we always make them look like humans, right? Like, well, if we're really going to do this, that's the reason we want it, is we don't want to die. We want to be forever like the robots. But we know the robots won't live forever.
Oh, we want to create them to look like us so that we could figure out how to put our brains into them.
And to fuck them. That's the other people don't talk about that enough. We want to fuck the robots.
I mean, that's where the funding comes from, right?
Yeah. Well, Brad, I think we got some time to share some videos. I think I've got a video.
You've got a video? All right.
I've got a video. I think you've got a video. Oh boy. I just, this video is a classic. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. It is called, oh wait, share audio, that's going to help. Got it. Thank you very much. It's called Mesozoic Mind. You ready for it?
I am ready, sure. As ready as I'm going to be.
Science! Oh, how can anybody study with all that noise? Turn off that music and go to bed. Give me your Mesozoic mind.
I love this already.
Yes.
Last night I had a crazy dream. I fell out of my bed. I missed the floor entirely. I fell through time instead. Through yesterday and history and unrecorded time. 100 million years flew by to Mesozoic times. I looked around and there I found that everything had changed. The earth was full of animals, they all were very strange. The dinosaurs were everywhere, in every shape and size. They walked the plains and mountains, they even filled the skies. Give me a Mesozoic mind.
I love this song.
So good. It's a bop for sure.
Yeah.
You can keep your Cenozoic, but I'll take that Mesozoic. Give me Mesozoic. Mine. Apatosaurus plodded past as tall as any tree. And pterosaur flew through the air, and monsters filled the sea. A mighty Stegosaurus clad with armor down its spine raised their Camarasaurus and others of a kind. I hid behind a wall of rock where Allosaurus warred. Corythosaurus ran away, escaping hungry hordes. Diplodocus took just one step and made the forest shake. I did not want my dream to end. I didn't want to wait. Give me a Mesozoic mind. Teach me to learn from what I find. You can keep your Cenozoic, but I'll take that Mesozoic. Give me Mesozoic.
That's it. Dinosaurs. I'll do my report on dinosaurs. It'll be great. They'll go crazy over it. I'm saved.
Oh, Fred Savage. And I had those same sheets.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I'm gonna flunk science.
Oh, it's so good. It's
That was
so
great.
so good. What do you got for me, Brad?
Savage. I have for you, the thing I have for you, I should probably give a very short explanation of why it exists. So
Okay.
there is a podcast / live stream, I guess, because they record live, but then they put out a video podcast called Night Attack.
Night Attack.
Night Attack. And they, well, I guess they're independent now with Patreon and everything, but years ago they had sponsors and they did ads that would often get them in trouble because they were very strange. And this is one of those ads for a company called Mail Route. And it's...
I have no idea what I'm about to watch.
It's so... I can't even... I'm just going to play it. Whatever. I'm not... That's... Yeah. Here we go. Let's share this. Righty. And yes, it is called Spam is a Rapist.
Boy, Spam is a Rapist sounds like a dance song. Spam is a rapist, spam is a rapist, spam is a rapist, yeah. Spam is a rapist, spam is a rapist, spam is a rapist, yeah. Rhythm is the dance of spam is a rapist, mail route is your father, yeah. Rhythm is the dance of spam is a rapist, mail route is your father, yeah. You got dinner in the oven. It rapes you and steals your dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, spam is a rapist. Rhythm is a dance of spam is a rapist.
What?
So there you go. A sponsored ad for an email service to stop you from getting email spam.
Wow. 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 Okay.
Yeah. So that's just a video that exists on the internet now.
I got another short one I can watch. I can let you see. I don't know if you've ever seen Jesus Christ in Richmond Park.
I'm not sure I have.
This is a classic in my opinion. This is one of my favorites. Again, Jesus Christ in Richmond Park. Let the video speak for itself. I don't think it needs any other introduction besides Jesus Christ in Richmond Park.
Jeez. All right then.
Oh boy. That is definitely one of those videos where if I'm just like, I just gotta get out of my head, I will watch that video. Just this man losing his mind because his dog is chasing the deers and screaming. Jesus Christ is so funny to me. It's so good.
It really is. Would you like to see it one more before we go?
Yes, Brad,
I've got
please.
a nice long list here.
Oh, give me a good one, please.
You want to see a classic sort of meme-filled nonsense video from the era before YouTube when they had to use Flash?
Yes.
It's on YouTube now because somebody uploaded it. But it'll just take a second to load the Flash. Which they, of course, included for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Oh.
Classic.
We are the world. We did it. Us.
All these up-to-date references.
Wow. Gotta love Ginsburg.
Yep.
Great Canadian comedian.
Absolutely.
Parappa. I love Parappa.
Parappa's a good song.
君がいたからラッキーだ平成不況政治不信リセットさえすりゃ最高だみんないるから楽しいやったやったやった教授やったやったムービースターは一枚になればいいみんな一緒だハッピーだやったやったやった息を吸うやった息を吐けるやんなるくらい健康だ Everybody say やった
It's a fair question.
Yeah. Wow, Brad.
So that's a thing. That
Brad,
exists.
if nothing else, I feel like that proves that AI would watch that video and say, we can't take over. There's no way we could make that.
We don't understand what makes these organisms function. If this is the kind of thing that they create.
If this is what they create, then maybe we need to keep them around and keep them fed. And yeah, wow.
Or they need to be destroyed.
Yes, they watch that video and they're like, yeah, firebomb.
We don't understand this. This does not follow any sort of rational thought or logic. They must be destroyed.
Yeah. Brad, we've covered a lot tonight. I feel like I got emotional. I feel like you got unemotional.
Shocking everyone.
Shocking. I know. But this is, as always, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for talking with me. I'm glad we were able to dive into this. I'm glad we were able to take Grimes down a couple of pegs and to the
Sure.
to the AI overlords who are inevitably going to watch this in the future. Please don't sterilize us.
See what team I'm on. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been good.
This has been good, Brad. This has been good.
Thank you, everyone is in the chat that's still there.
Who's still here? Who's still
Carrie
watching?
showed up just in time for the ridiculous
For the videos, yeah. Again, I think we will continue to do these deep dives into a topic. We'll continue watching videos. If people want to share videos with us that they enjoy watching and weird ones that we've never seen, we'll watch them and give hot takes. But yeah, Brad, I look forward to talking to you more next Wednesday. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight.
See you next week, everybody.
Bye.